letter in the mail, and the original owner of the Spooky Time Club has died. And so now you and 5 of your best Spooky Time friends are going to go to a manor and fight to the death to see who's now the real owner of the Spooky Time Club. It's the Spooky Time Club.
Wow, and that intro was not only fun and off the cuff, but ties directly into the subject of tonight's episode of the Spooky Time Club. I'm Lee George Cade, and that is Rebecca Frost.
Hola.
Hola. I'm cranky. I'm not sure. Are you cranky?
I'm moody.
Okay, awesome. So this should be a lot of fun. Actually, I think if we were talking about anything but Werewolf by Night, that was just a surprise drop on Disney Plus, maybe we would be crankier about it. But I had such a good time with this little birthday treat. It dropped the day before my birthday, and I was just like,
oh, what a good birthday present.
Thank you so much, because it had so many things that I wasn't expecting. I didn't even know this show existed a month ago.
We've literally talked about it on the podcast.
We did, like in September, but that was the first I heard of it.
No. Listen, I'm not going to do this work, but I am willing to bet that we have talked about it at least in the springtime of this year.
Okay. If I was there, which I may not have been, was I paying attention?
So you're saying you're just never present?
When I leave wholly. I'm gone. I just leave. But no, I don't remember. It's possible that we talked about it and I was there and that I forgot, because I was like, how could they do a good Werewolf by Night? It's the cheesiest comic in the world.
And look, they've done it.
They did it.
I mean,
really,
I'm
really
assuming.
well.
I've never read the comic. I don't know anything about these people.
Here's a little back history from me. As a kid in the 70s, like, the spinner rack was where I would go hang out when I was waiting for my mom to finish groceries. Because
is that
I was
a store?
The spinner rack is what they used to put comic books on at the grocery store.
I'm being facetious.
Okay. Sorry. If that sounded mansplaining, I didn't mean it.
No,
I feel terrible.
I set it up that way.
Okay. So the Smith's Food and Drug in Magna, Utah, where my family lived, we had a spinner rack by the front door, and because I was a pain in the ass at the store, but you couldn't leave me at home because I would burn things. So you had to bring me to the grocery store, but you didn't want me hanging out with you because I would put things in the cart that you didn't want in the cart, and then, funny joke when you're checking out. So they'd leave me at the spinner rack, and I would just stare at comics. And there were 3 comics before I discovered X-Men that always caught my attention. One was Sergeant Rock. Don't know why.
What the fuck is Sergeant Rock?
Military comic. Don't care. Yeah, why? I don't know. But I was like 9, right? So, and then the other one was The Man Thing, which is
also a military comic, if we think about it.
Could be. Whosoever knows fear will burn at the Man Thing's touch. That was the whole gimmick. And I would look at the covers, and it was like the 70s horror vibe, and I loved it. And then Werewolf by Night, who I thought looked like a cheesy wolf man with ripped up jeans. And so that was it, right? So then I found X-Men, and that changed everything. But
sure.
Werewolf by Night, this show that they just put on Disney Plus last week, had so many surprises that I was not expecting. Because we saw the preview, we saw the trailer, we thought, cool, here's people. We didn't know who those people were.
Yeah,
awesome.
And like I don't mean to be a Marvel zombie. Like I say, every time they put something new out, but like they keep putting out good stuff. What am I supposed to do? Not like it?
I'll stop being a Marvel zombie when they stop putting out entertaining media. And it's not saying that other people don't put out entertaining media. They do, but...
Yeah, I'm just saying Marvel's like super consistent.
Yeah, and I remember Trial of the Incredible Hulk.
What was he on trial for? Theft.
Probably for ripping the ass out on his jeans in public. So, but, that was John Rhys Davies playing the Kingpin. And it was terrible. It was really terrible. So... Now we get things like Werewolf by Night, which, for one, the greatest joke in the world is the main character.
Jack Russell?
Yeah.
Like a Jack Russell Terrier?
Yeah. Okay, so before we get too much into it, you had a good time with it, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, I had a blast. I paid far too much attention to detail. Because I had mentioned it in our group chat. Like, I think it's very funny that they've included cigarette burns on this piece of media that is strictly digital.
Yeah.
But as I was watching it again yesterday, I did notice and I worked at a movie theater. I was a projectionist at a movie theater, and so like I know all about like threading film and stuff, and how, you know, the first parts of your film reel are going to be more banged up than say something in the middle of a film reel. So I paid way too close attention to the damage marks on the film strip as the show was starting, and every time the reel changed, and
Nice.
it was kind of a nice little attention to detail.
It was a love
That they
letter
just
to
added
movies,
that,
wasn't it?
yeah, just added that filter to it. Oh yeah, totally.
So, one of my favorite contemporary Marvel characters is Elsa Bloodstone, who was introduced in 2001 in Marvel Comics. She is such a fun character. She's an ass kicker. She hunts monsters. That's what she does. Sometimes she does it with a blunderbuss. Sometimes she does it with a machine gun. She was in Next Wave Agents of Hate, one of my favorite titles of the last 20 years. And she's just fun. And realizing when this show started that Elsa Bloodstone was like the principal lead on the show, not the Werewolf by Night. He was, but she was as much a part of it. And then bringing in Ulysses Bloodstone and his stupid wife and like all these monster hunters, and then we get the treat of Laura Donnelly playing her. She was so good in the Nevers, and
which character was she?
she was the lead in the Nevers. She was the
No, I mean like in Werewolf by Night.
Oh, she was Elsa Bloodstone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's her.
Yes.
Okay, I like did not even piece that together.
I didn't either until I was doing my research, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's that lady from the Nevers," and she's really good at like stage combat, and she has that. I don't know. She's just like, she is Elsa Bloodstone. Aside from the red hair, I mean, she doesn't have red hair. So what? I can live with that. So many cool choices with this. I mean, what? Okay, you wanna share the premise of this whole thing? You kind of teased it in the beginning.
Yeah, it was in the intro. So essentially, Ulysses Bloodstone has passed away, and so now they need to find a new owner of the Bloodstone. It would have just gone to Elsa, but she has, without real explanation, like defected from the family and the lifestyle. So we don't even exactly know what she's been up to. Maybe she has been out killing monsters and like really up in her game. We don't know. Right. But they have summoned five monster hunters for this ceremony of deciding who is to be the possessor of the Bloodstone. And there's a maze on the Ulysses estate throughout which weapons have been scattered, and all these hunters are not allowed to take in their own weapons, but only use the weapons that are within the maze. And a monster has been released into the maze, and whoever kills the monster first wins the Bloodstone, essentially.
Simple.
It's a really simple concept. And we meet some we really only talk to one of the other hunters that's not Jack Russell.
Right.
The Scottish guy who he's
just standard Scottish berserker.
Your standard Scottish bro.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have talked to the other hunters, but I get it. We are running on a 55-minute runtime, so gotta keep the story moving.
And they're doing some things like they kind of did this with they're doing a lot with She-Hulk, where they're bringing in characters that could actually be part of the greater MCU. They could show up in movies. Like, so some of those hunters, I don't know if they survived. I can't really remember if all of them survived. I don't
think so. I think nobody survived.
But they all, some of them looked like, characters from Blade. And
yeah, like I definitely thought, like, okay, so these are all going to be in the Blade movie, right? Because that's the other thing about this special presentation in particular is it's quite anachronistic. We don't know what year this takes place in. And it's filmed beautifully that way. Like, it could take place in present day, it could take place in the 50s, and we won't. There's no way to know.
Not a cell phone to be seen.
No, not at all.
Yeah, and they do some really great practical work. Like, Ulysses is dead, and so
he's
his wife. He's a puppet that talks. It's so very. It reminded me in so many ways of the Haunted Mansion ride in so many places. And it's in love with the source material, and the big reveal being that the Man-Thing is the monster that they've concealed in the maze. And
Funny that you called that the big reveal, because I think the big reveal
is later.
Is a couple of other things. One, that the Man Thing and Jack Russell are friends, and Jack Russell is there to free him, but also
he's always getting in trouble and getting caught.
Yeah, but also Jack Russell, I knew going in he was the werewolf by night. I knew that, but when he touched the bloodstone and because monsters can't touch the bloodstone, and zapped him, I did go, oh no, why?
They did some amazing, and I love that the only thing that had any color to it was the bloodstone, and that everything else was in black and white. And there's so many homages to the old Universal horror movies, the Hammer horror movies. I thought when he transformed into the werewolf that they would maybe go with something that was less Wolfman and more werewolf, and they went with the standard classic Wolfman design, and I actually loved it.
Oh, he looked so good.
Yeah, and he was very jumpy.
He was extremely jumpy.
Very, very leapy. Like Batroc had nothing on this guy.
A real Hereditary moment when he first breaks out. I mean, we're jumping all over the place story-wise, but
that's fine.
When he breaks out of the cage and he's doing just fine, he goes to hide up in the shadows, and you don't see him till you see him, which is an extremely, like, that was in the movie Hereditary, where that was one of my most favorite. I know, I'm pretty sure I've talked about it. One of my most favorite theater experiences, because you hear the audience at different intervals see what's happening. Anyway.
Yeah, I love the lurking danger in the shadows bit is always great. And I feel like, I know we're going heavily into spoiler territory, but I think the main reason why I wanted to talk about this for Spooky Time Club, it's spooky, but it's not terrifying. It's not scary, but it's so much fun.
It scared me right off the bat because, it startled me, I guess is more the word, because it starts with your typical Marvel fanfare, but then Michael Giacchino comes in, and it's so funny too, because we get the intro of like a Marvel special presentation, and I'm like, oh, this is fun and unique.
70s, yeah.
And yeah, this is fun and unique, and really sets this apart from other Marvel properties. And then the Marvel fanfare and intro started to play, and I was like, oh, okay, like pretty standard stuff. And I got on my phone because I was gonna wait for the thing to end, but then there's the slash, and it switches to black and white, and the screech, and I was like, oh, okay, me gusta. Okay, this is very fun.
Yep. And they there are two things I really wanted to touch on. Is one, Michael Giacchino, he directed this, which is fantastic.
Directed this and did the score for it. And
he did the score for it.
There's so many moments within this show where and I wanted to like point them out or post about them on Twitter, but I'm like, literally nobody gives a shit but me.
And me.
But like one moment that really stood out to me that I was like, man, that's a choice, is the cage that they're trapped in when they catch Elsa and Jack Russell. It's, it looked like a standard prison bars, but like it's really cool. But later when he breaks out and it pans up and it shows how he broke out, the music that plays, it's plucky violin strings.
Of course.
Which is extremely, because that's what it looks like, right? Like I was looking at that and I was like, wow, those look like broken strings. And that's exactly what he did with the music. And I'm like, man, that's a choice that you made, and that was a really good choice.
I think maybe more composers need to direct, because I think he directed it with the score in mind the entire time. He's going, oh, and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the string plucks. I'm going to do, he used the psycho strings there. He used that at one point. So good. And I think the other thing that I really, really wanted to talk about this for is because I'm afraid people will go, oh, I don't know what this is, and not watch it, and because of that miss out on something that I think was really special.
Oh yeah.
Like, really special. Like this is like when my wife and I went to see Nightmare Before Christmas, not knowing what it was going to be, just seeing it because it was Tim Burton and stop motion. And we sat down in the theater that was empty because that movie bombed. I don't know if people remember that. And walking away from it just dumbstruck. And that's how I was after Werewolf by Night, where I just felt like something really special had been delivered with very little fanfare just because they could.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I
And
hope they do more of that.
the Werewolf by Night really whole like Marvel has a formula, but
Hmm.
it's a formula that works. And I feel like I want to read the Marvel Bible. I want to read what their rules are, because we're introduced to Man Thing, and you're expecting to be scared by Man Thing and scared by the Werewolf by Night, but you learn about them and you learn they're not monsters. They, like a lot of the other villains in the Marvel universe, they have their reasons and they're not necessarily villains. They're just going about it the wrong way.
Yep.
And Werewolf by Night does exactly that, because Man Thing is he's just a man thing trying to get by in the world, and so is Jack Russell. He specifically does not want to fight anybody. He doesn't want to fight Elsa when he comes across her, and he doesn't want to fight the Scottish guy. And she
It's like
points
a
that out.
pacifist. Yeah.
Yeah. And like I just love I think it is kind of campy that they do this with everything, but
Sure.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Your villains, they have lives and stories too.
And like they did it with Baron Zemo, right? We had a
Exactly.
little taste of that, but then when the Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, we're just like, oh, he's actually a compelling and entertaining character. And they did. There's this homage to the Wizard of Oz, where when Elsa finally sits down with the Bloodstone,
Oh yeah.
and the whole thing goes to color while they're playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and you actually see for the first time in black and white, you can see everything in crisp, wonderful detail. But then when everything goes into color, I swear they turned the saturation up, because her coat is this beautiful red leather.
Definitely.
Ted the Man Thing with all of his mushrooms and the different
And
types
flowers. The man has flowers on him.
Yeah.
Wow, I did not expect to fall in love with Man Thing.
He's awesome.
I saw they first see his face, and I went, "Uh-oh, he's cute."
And he's never cute in the comics, so I'm fine with it. And it just, I mean, let's have fun with our properties, I think is really comes down to. And I hope that this is something that is successful, and that Marvel turns around and says, you know what, we don't need to do a movie about Man Thing. We can just do a one-off special, and then if we decide to use him later for something cool, we do. Or if they do a horror anthology series with Elsa Bloodstone hunting monsters, I'll be the first in line. I really like her as an actress. I really like her as that character, so I want to see more. But if this is all we get, it was perfect.
Yeah, I'm very much of like, I wish every show just had one season. Like,
Sure.
I love it when my stories are short and quick and to the point and not drawn out.
Right.
And what I also kind of hope to see, I heard this on another podcast, but I was like, man, that's a really good idea. I kind of hope Marvel does like a holiday themed something with all the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Like you Werewolf by Night for Halloween. You could do a Steve Rogers something for the 4th of July. There's all kinds of stuff you could do.
There's a ton they could do with it, and maybe this was them testing that out or not. Again, if you folks haven't seen it, I think it's definitely worth your time. It might be too much for little kids. That's the
It's
question I
definitely the
always get asked.
goriest. It's the goriest Marvel property we've seen so far,
Yeah, there's a lot of blood spatter. So
and like brutal kills.
yeah, that's true. I think the What If animation had perhaps more severe violence, but it was animation, so it didn't come across necessarily as gory.
And I wonder too, because in Multiverse of Madness, you see like when Wanda is going through the whatever and killing all the robots, she's not covered in blood, she's covered in oil, so it's black. And I kind of wonder if that's why they let Michael Giacchino get as buck wild as he could with this, because it's in black and white and not you're not seeing red blood, because there are shots where there's blood spatter on the camera, which incredible filmmaking. But like, because it's not red, you don't really associate it with.
And what's
blood.
funny is who's going to know that more than the film branch of a comic book company that had to comply with the Comics Code Authority and draw blood as black for decades.
Yeah.
So you read comics from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and anytime anybody's bleeding, it's black, because they were forbidden by the Comics Code Authority to show it in color. So they already knew what to do, and it's perfect.
Speaking of color, I'm obsessed with the concept of creating knowing that you're shooting in black and white and creating your sets to like, because like if you look at pictures of the Addams Family set, the set was pink.
All pink. Yeah.
And so with that in mind, Azrael's outfit, the white feather jumpsuit, probably pink. And
Yeah,
I
show up.
want to see that.
And it's wild hearing the history of white in television. Like it, for some reason, on cinematic film, on movie screens, it shows up okay, but on TV, something about white is completely wrong. Like even on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Mockingbird's costume had to be largely gray because they couldn't shoot it in white. It just didn't look right. So be interesting to see. There is a documentary coming out that's exploring the making of Werewolf by Night, and that'll probably be out in the next couple of weeks. I always find that most of the shows that Disney Plus does ends up having an accompanying documentary. And a lot of times I end up finding things in the documentary that I didn't catch in the show that makes me go, oh, that was fun. Like with the Kenobi documentary, it was really cool.
I don't typically watch those, but this one I will for sure watch. Only because I am obsessed with Michael Giacchino. He is my favorite composer. And I don't know if that's like a weird favorite to have, but like the man crushes it all the time. And if you look at how he titles his tracks, like they're always very punny. Like the man is so funny, and he knows it too.
That's awesome. So I'm happy to say I totally recommend this for anybody that's on the fence about it. I'm assuming you do too.
Yeah, totally. And then I know I've shouted about this like 1,000 times, but Michael Giacchino, back in 2018, I was corrected, not 2020. He directed a short. It's on YouTube. It's called Monster Challenge. I am begging you to watch it. It literally, I sent it to a guy at work, and he watched it, and he's like, "How does this only have 52,000 views?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I've been trying to proselytize it." But it's called Monster Challenge. It has Patton Oswalt in it, Ben Schwartz in it. Patton Oswalt goes to Japan and gets on a Japanese game show. Like, it's so good. And I have been shouting about this from the rooftops forever, and just highly give it a recommend.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, folks, next week we'll actually talk about probably more frightening fare than Werewolf by Night. But, it is October. We should talk about scary things. But I've been Leigh, and that's been Rebecca.
I have, and I will continue to be, yeah.
You will. What is the... So we'll talk to you next week, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Goodbye.